Good, right? What's up, you guys? Welcome to Envision podcasting. I have a good, dear old friend of mine, Chase. How are you doing, my man?
I've been doing great, honestly. I'm not gonna lie.
Fuck yeah.
Stressful. It's a good level of stress.
What do you mean stressful? What's going on?
Well, it's busy. And
Okay.
I think a lot of it also turns out from doing school and work right now. I go to University of Hartford. I'm an architect major. So in about 4-ish years, I'll have my master's.
Fuck yeah.
Completely done.
Congratulations.
I'll be able to get licensed and everything. It's been a very difficult journey so far because it's a lot of patience. I say the hardest part about architecture isn't even architecture. It's about like yourself and like how you approach things. And that's the stressful part because a little bit about me is like individualism and existentialism is a very like big philosophy that people struggle with, including myself.
Right.
So that's why it gets a little stressful because it's like trying to nurture your craft while not sacrificing a piece of yourself.
Right.
It's very easy to get caught up in that as well without like sacrificing a piece of things. So like it's a little stressful, but it's a good stress. It's a good growing pain.
So you talked about individualism and then existentialism.
Yeah.
What's existentialism?
It's finding your purpose.
Okay.
You know, for example, Gandhi, right?
Right.
When he was doing the walk and for hunger and everything, a lot of that was a self-fulfillment and purpose. Right. A lot of that relates back to existentialism because it's like, how can I as a human being contribute something back to society, contribute something to this earth without sacrificing, ethics, morals, sustainability, and am I doing something that's good? Because everything's a byproduct of another thing. Right. This conversation will turn into a byproduct of something. Right. This light was a byproduct of a product itself.
Right.
Someone had to buy that, someone had to make it. So a lot of the existentialism in that is, am I doing the right thing? Right. And I think that's the difficult part.
Is there like a line between like doing what you want to do and kind of fulfilling yourself and being remembered? Because I feel like oftentimes either those blur or they're like separated. You know what I mean? Like, like, do I want to do something? Like, am I doing this podcast so that way people remember what I did, or am I doing it because I enjoy it, or both? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the big part of it.
I feel like that's a lot of people who sell what they do. Try to look at the results of it more than the actual craft. But and it is a tricky line, especially for you, who you said that this is your third business that you've actually launched. Which is pretty sick.
It's a lot of trial and error.
Right.
I think that's what people also don't see. That's like behind the scenes part. Like the first time I ever did it was I was really a 16-year-old sophomore with my boy. Shout out to Matthew White.
Matthew White.
You
were featured for the second time.
Instantly, I got a big kudos. I think he's a major influence, and he does not. Maybe he does realize it, but maybe he doesn't. But it needs to be credited. Right. But me and him, like, we just like, yeah, man, like let's make our own clothing brand. Right. Supreme was like really, really popping at the time. I'm not talking like post hype beast Supreme. I'm talking about like skater culture, like Supreme. That there's a very fine line between those.
Do you think that was a time thing though, because you were a sophomore? Like, do you think you could start that brand now?
No.
Okay, so it was like a 16, 17.
16, because it was just like the idea of parody. It's like, this is what's popular right now. How can we? It was almost like ironic. Right. I'm a big meme guy.
Right.
I like the shit post. Yeah. I think everyone likes the shit post every now and then. Right. But I think with a lot of that was like, how can we make this ironic? So we made a stupid thing just called Rare-ish. It was a play on rare shit. Oh, Rare-ish. We only made like 10 shirts. So I guess you could say it was kind of rare. Right. At the end of the day, it was kind of rare. Right. But like a lot of that, was just like, it was fun.
Well, it's also
I made some wallpapers. And
ironically, what you said, it's rare in the sense that people who are sophomores and juniors, like in high school, they maybe start having those ideas, but they don't start distributing them until well after. And I feel like that's a lot of that is anxiety, right? Like when I was younger, when I was 16, 17-year-old, I mean, I didn't have anxiety among people as much, but I did have more anxiety when it came to like anything I would do on camera. You know what I mean? I would think like, you know how I just said that was more of a 16-year-old thing? Well, this is more of like a 21, 22-year-old thing. That for me, as a personal development, some people could do this. You see people blow up all the time. They're like 13, 14 years old, going viral for whatever, or they're like starting YouTube or whatever at such an early age. But I think everybody kind of progresses in a different way. And so
100%.
so that being your first business, your second one was 7. Now that was where I feel like people started recognizing you a bit more. Can you talk about that?
I think a big thing about myself is I've always been artist.
Okay.
Right? I've never really defined myself to like one. Like I don't consider myself, I'm just a fashion designer.
Right.
Or I'm just like an architect. Now, I can say I am becoming an architect, but I don't want to define myself as just one thing. So like when I made 7, I was just like, I want to make clothes again. Like clothes was kind of fun. Like even though we did that as a parody, like let's do it again.
Right.
So I got a group of friends together, and then we just started babbling about different ideas and concepts. Oh, it's for skaters. Oh, it's for people that want to just relax and be into streetwear or whatever it was.
Right.
Reflection of character.
Right.
Finding people that like share those same things.
Right.
It turned more into a personal project by the end of it, but I ended it. It was just like, it was a fun thing. It wasn't nothing deep.
How long did you run it for?
A couple months.
Okay.
Like, it was literally just like half a year.
Because you got a lot of like attention for a couple months.
Like, I mean, I got orders in. Like,
right.
Generally, some people would take this as an insult, and I found this actually as a big compliment. I found one of my pieces one time.
Okay.
For 7. It was a crew neck I made at Plato's Closet. Right?
Wow.
And I was like, at first I was like, holy shit. I was like, whoa. I was like, that's a throwback. And this is like 2020.
That's funny.
It's like 2 years later.
Seeing what you used to distribute at a thrift store.
And I'm like, whoa,
that's funny.
That's crazy. And at first I was like, I don't know if I should be offended or complimented. Because my cousin really opened a lot of insight on me, right?
Right.
One of his friends is like a younger sister or something. Shout out to Justice Michael, my cousin. He's very talented.
Shout out to Justice Michael.
He's very talented.
Does he have an Instagram?
Yes.
We have
Justice Michael official. He's awesome, super talented. He's been a very big mentor figure in like the space of like entertainment and anything, right?
Okay.
But he was like, I found this old band shirt that I made in one of my old bands, and I was like, this thing's ugly as this thing's awful.
Right.
But then like his friend's little sister ever found it.
Okay.
And was like, I love this shirt. I love it. And he was like, even though I hate this, or someone else found it and repurposed it.
Right.
They upcycled that same thing.
Right.
So when I saw that in the store, I was like, this is a cool moment because someone, whether this sells now or 10 months from now, or even if Plato's just send it to a random Goodwill, someone will ought to find that and be like, that's interesting.
Right.
Even if they pick it up and put it back down.
Right.
It still grabs someone to take a look at it.
Right.
So like that was a really cool moment. That's a byproduct of something I only did for a couple months.
Right.
And I found it again in a new light. It
Right.
was almost like seeing an old self because I don't even associate with that person anymore. That's so long gone.
Right.
Like I've grown as a person.
Right.
So I've been able to face that. And see it.
Do you look at you now? You don't look down on that. Like you look at it as like, oh, that was a growth period.
Oh,
right.
I think both. I think it's important to look down on it and be like, oh, God, that person looked cringy as hell.
Right.
Whatever that sense is, but
I could have done fucking better.
I could have done better. But then it's also a thing where it's like you said earlier, in a conversation, like these first couple episodes, no one's really critiquing or whatever, but you're starting.
Right.
And that's the important part. Is you're putting your foot into that water and like, how far can I go into this sea? How deep do I want to go?
Right.
And it's no matter how much you want to submerge yourself. And you're not going to learn to swim if you don't really start walking in that water at first.
Right.
So I think that moment was like those couple months, like, cool, I did this.
Right.
Found out a lot about sustainability and recycling and anything of that sense because I really had to research.
Right.
And that's why my, the business I do now, it's been taking forever.
Right.
And I also learned a business is not a couple months.
Right.
It's a continuous line
behind the scenes too.
Behind the scenes.
Right.
Kind of like a branch off this because I go on r/streetwear startup a lot. It's on Reddit, right?
Okay. What is that exactly?
So it's like a community on Reddit.
Okay.
A lot of people might laugh because it's Reddit, but I think
Reddit
can be a very cool tool.
You're the third.
Utilize it.
You're the third guest that has mentioned Reddit and like how that has helped like you develop, and I think it's cool the way you said that. It is a tool. Like a lot of people look at Reddit and like look at the memes and the ridiculous things, like the threads that are posted on it, and that's all ridiculous nonsense. But at the same time, it's funny nonsense. Number one, and number two, there's so much to be found there.
There's a lot.
As far as any sort of advice you may need about what you're doing. Most people on Reddit or any social media platform are very honest.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you post something, generally speaking, unless it's like something like you're talking about this. This was one of those things where people are just happy that it's starting. Mm-hmm. But if it's something more like art or architecture, I feel like that's to be more critiqued, not so much because it's like it's being looked at. You know what I mean? It's kind of like as like a gym reference. It's like bodybuilding versus powerlifting. Yeah. Okay. So bodybuilding, it's like you're sculpted. You're trying to look a certain way on stage, and people are judging you. Yeah. And there are like scorecards and whatever. It's a very judgmental place, but it's built around that. It has to be that way in order for the competition to be a competition. With powerlifting, it's very objective. It's like, can you get the weight up or not? But the crowd there is very different. It's not a judgmental crowd. It's like everyone's cheering you on.
Oh yeah.
So like for this is like powerlifting, and for you like architecture and any sort of art in general that you've built over the last 3 businesses that you've launched. That's more of like that bodybuilding. Like has not even competition with other brands either, but just competition with yourself. Like, okay.
I'm always in competition with myself.
Right.
That can be my own worst enemy.
Right.
But I think one of the big takeaways too is like I said, it's not just a couple months.
Right.
And I think that's like a lot of people's issues when it comes to making clothes or making music, is they really want that instant, like, it happened.
Mm.
But there's so much more that happens in character development that you need to understand and grasp to like get it. Mm. And I'm still figuring it out. So this is advice to my own self from when I watch this in 5 years from now, you know? It's, you have to be able to take what you're doing and narrow it down and understand what you're making.
Right.
Because it's very easy to make a shirt.
Right.
But are you making a shirt or are you making a product?
Okay.
Because a product and a shirt are 2 different things, right? I can go and order a bulk order on vistaprint.com right now on some heavyweight Gildan t-shirts, and some, you know, Chinese factory worker got paid 25 cents an hour to make to make that bulk shirt.
Right.
At that point, have I made a product, or did I pay someone else to make something and I'm selling a shirt?
Right.
And that's the difference here. And like I said with the streetwear startup, like there's a lot of people that go on and like, what do you think of this? And it's like, well, you just put something on a shirt.
Right.
What does this tell about you? What does this tell about your brand and your identity? And like, I think going back to that thing, this is my 3rd time doing this. I've really been able to identify more my values, my morals, my ethics, again, a lot of it just relates back to architecture. What's your logos? What's your ethos? What's your pathos? You know, those are very important things.
What's pathos?
So I'm getting wishy-washy because I've had so much knowledge crammed into me this past week with school. But like, there's 3 branches of like philosophy. Your ethos, I might mix them up. Your ethos is like your, you know, emotional, your ethics, and everything. Your logos is like the forefront of everything.
All right, so the way like you're perceived or looked at.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like it goes into that. So it's like you have to understand what are you distributing back out, because that's a reflection of you.
Right.
You know, when you make something, it's very easy to copy something. And I think one of my favorite quotes actually is, "Good artists imitate, but great artists steal."
Oh, right? Really? Yeah.
And
I like that.
Oh my god! Because I saw the piece in person. It's Van Gogh wrote it, and Banksy, the artist, took the actual carving out of the concrete.
Really?
And scratched his name off, and then put Banksy underneath.
Really?
It's literally like an imitation of like, oh, I literally stole this.
Right.
But it's like great artists steal.
Right.
Instead of imitate.
Right.
Right. And stealing is not in the sense of thievery. Stealing is the basic concept of like, what can I take out of this that's actually of value?
Right. Well, that's that byproduct.
That's the byproduct
that you're talking about.
But if you imitate, you're not identifying yourself with anything. You're putting on a skin for someone else to get revenue in or get people to like, because you're imitating something rather than stealing the idea and bringing an actual byproduct of it.
You know, it's funny because I had on the very first episode of Envision podcasting, I had a good friend of mine named Liam on, which shout out to Liam. He runs Sleepy Dot Design clothing.
Yeah,
he
does follow each other.
He does an excellent job. He released an owl figure about 3 years ago. He was talking about this. He released an owl figure, and people put that like together with Drake's OVO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then he kind of was talking about how, not that he was I don't want to say ashamed. He was more of like, this sucks. You know what I mean? Like, this is terrible. Like, I built this like from my own head, not even thinking. He said he didn't even know about OVO until someone pointed it out.
Yeah.
Like, so he wasn't thinking about trying to imitate a brand, but because art is so like there's so much of it, and there's a very, very, very long history. There's not a long history.
There's a lot of it.
Like in comparison to art, there's not a long history of like a talk show or a podcast. You know what I mean?
That's
it's
all
like,
very relatively new.
Right.
That's like 100 years.
Exactly.
And some people would be like, oh, 100 years ago, that's old.
Right.
Like, in terms of technology and advancement, that's yesterday.
Especially as fast as we're going now.
Like, especially like with this.
Right.
Like this is yesterday.
Right.
Even though this is the iPhone 14 Pro.
Right.
This is in comparison to you go to iPhone 10. Oh wow, that's a lot of upgrade.
Right.
When you really look at it, past 30 years ago, people had a brick on their face.
Or the rotary and shit like that. Yeah.
That's yesterday's technology. So it's like, but art, you got centuries of that.
Right.
And it's like, that's another problem too, is like overconsumption.
Right.
As well as like, are we over consuming? Are we over distributing? Because that's a big problem right now. Is like, what is important and what's not, and how do you filter what is important and not?
I like that. I think that obviously being a brand or trying to build a brand myself, and you building your business, we're always looking to constantly improve. And I feel as if with technology in general, that is, and I think most people feel this way, that is going to probably be our downfall. It's the fact that we want to constantly get better and better and better, especially when you talk about what's going on right now with like microchips in your brain and stuff like that. It's like, okay, where does this stop? I understand convenience. Like, you ever watch WALL-E?
Oh yeah.
You remember that? You remember that scene with all the fat dudes on the spaceship?
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
they're everywhere, and they all do the same thing.
Well, the idea there was like, okay, convenience has really gotten the best of us, and although it might not be to that extent, or like that was like over, like that movie was made over like almost 15 years ago, but they're kind of showing us where we are heading, even though it might not be that. Like that exactly. It's like, flying cars, stuff like that. Like, that's what we used to imagine. But now that we're getting more serious, it's more of like, flying cars is the least of our fucking worries. It's more about the chips in your brains. How about the cars that you don't even drive and you're sleeping, like just nodding off, and then boom, you hit something?
You know what I mean?
That's
foreign. It's foreign to us. Even cars are still yesterday's technology. It's still relatively new.
Right.
And I think that's where I don't like a lot of our society here in the States and what we are doing right now, especially with overconsumption. You bring up WALL-E, for example, and like, it's a weird comparison. That's why I don't go on TikTok. I refuse. I can't do it.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you.
And maybe because
maybe one day though, we'll see. We'll see.
Maybe because I watch
next episode. I'm like, I'm following my TikTok. Like, come on,
shameless plug. Like, hey,
I don't want to say. I'll say it 3 times throughout the episode. Just drop it in random conversations.
But no, it's a problem. Maybe because I watch YouTube video essays and maybe they're a little pretentious in some degrees. But it is a problem. It's an addiction.
Right.
Because again, silly comparison, but I was watching Matt Pat from Game Theory. Okay. He just left, so rest in peace to Matt Pat's contributions to Game Theory. It's just a theory.
Okay.
But
he passed away?
No, he didn't pass away.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm saying,
I thought this man
died. No. It's a big loss for YouTube community because he's always been a forefront for the past decade.
All right, I see what you're saying.
He's doing these series where he's doing these last 7 videos of him being on the channel, right?
Okay.
One of the topics he brought up was YouTube Shorts is literally killing the platform.
Okay.
Right. And it's because YouTube is competing against TikTok right now. TikTok is very convenient. You don't have to curate anything. It's just curated for you. You go on it and the algorithm just spits whatever it wants you to watch.
Right.
YouTube, however, when you go on YouTube, you have most likely, if you don't see anything on the homepage, it's a search engine.
Right.
You have to go and search something up. Or podcast.
Right.
Okay, then you look up podcast. Shit, there's Andrew Tate. I don't want to watch that.
Right.
I don't really want to watch H3 either. So you got to dig for what aligns with you.
Right.
But YouTube Shorts has become such a forefront where it's like it's sacrificing the creator and the actual audience.
Right.
Where there's this thin line that's not there anymore. And
right.
Like, people don't recognize TikTok stars. You can have 1 million followers on TikTok, but you can still walk outside and be like, not really recognized, or no one's gonna be like, oh, dude, I love that TikTok you did.
Right.
Because it doesn't stick as people as much. They like it, but you don't really go back to it. It doesn't really substantialize with you.
Right.
Rather than a YouTube video, like there's YouTube videos I go back to over 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, like that creator really made some of the substance.
Right.
And again, this is a very subjective standpoint, but literally TikTok and that short form content is addicting because you don't stop doing it. You just scroll. You scroll.
Do you think that's in a lot of ways kind of disrupting the focus of not even the younger generation, but any generation that goes on and watches like just people in general? Like if you go on and you just start scrolling through reels like crazy instead of watching longer videos, like this is a longer video than a short, obviously, and you have to like really sit down and like get into it and watch it the whole time, or maybe even most of the time. This is what I find myself doing when I'm listening to podcasts or watching them, which is why I really want to put it on different platforms. So we're working on that, but like I notice myself, I'm like doing something like cleaning my kitchen or something like that while listening to
the stuff while I'm at work.
Right, exactly.
Boxes. And the thing about, it's not even just younger generation.
Right.
It's, I hate that. This generations, Gen Z, Gen whatever.
Right.
Alpha. Everyone's a byproduct of this right now.
Right.
You know, my dad's on Facebook all the time.
Right.
He sends me, I bet you if I open my phone, I bet you I have a notification from him right now that's on Facebook, you know?
Right.
And these boomers or X, they love to claim, when we were age, we were outside. We were doing all this. You're not doing it now, so why does it matter? Right. You're not continuing that same childlike wonder.
Right.
Why are you comparing it to now?
Right, exactly.
And that's a problem. That's a problem.
Setting that example, too. You know what I mean? That's important as well. That's critical. It's critical to set an example for the younger, quote-unquote, generation. I think that, like, the social media platforms that we have now, like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that, it's like a tool like Reddit. You know, Reddit is full of ridiculous nonsense. So is YouTube. So is TikTok. But if you use it to your advantage, or use it to like look for certain things that you want, or maybe I see a podcaster that is doing this a specific way, and I'm like, oh wow, I never even thought about, you know what I mean, filming at that angle or trying with that lighting or anything like that. Like you got to use it as a tool for knowledge, as like a little tool in your toolbox. You can't put yourself in a position where you're just. And I do it a lot, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that
everyone does. Everyone falls victim.
I try to be more aware of it than I notice most people are. And it's funny, I was talking to a buddy of mine about that. It's like the amount of knowledge you can just learn from people in comparison to telling your story. It's like the ratio is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Most interactions, people are, and like I said, I find myself doing it too, but I make myself aware of it. A lot of people try to tell where they're coming from or their side immediately while listening to the other person. That's all they're thinking about is like what they're going to say after this person is done, rather than actually listening to that person. And that is focus right there that's lost, which reels and stuff like that arguably add on to. It's arguably, not arguably, probably definitely a thing that taps into people who don't have focus and then just lowers it. You know what I mean? It's like that's all you're doing, you know?
And one of my favorite lyrics actually was, "You're not listening, you're waiting for your turn to talk."
Right.
And I think that's a really big important takeaway, because it's not even just younger generation or anything like before. Like it's literally everyone right now. It's because everyone. Funny thing, actually, people notice country music has taken a huge spike up on music charts. It's as popular as ever right now. But it's not that there's a resurgence of country music. It's that there's cell towers now being actually placed in the middle of nowhere where people listen to country music.
Really?
You know,
that.
It's a huge thing. You know, when you have all the Midwest in the United States, they finally built up stronger cell towers. Oh wow, they actually have LTE now. You know,
really?
As opposed to people in New York City, you know, like why rap was really big in the 2010s and late 2010s is because cities provided Wi-Fi and, you know, cellular stuff, and Spotify, that's where their headquarters and everything are, so people can actually listen, stream it, do whatever they need to do to share it. So in that same sense, it's like people are now overcompensating because everyone's getting that technology. Like I said, there's not a resurgence of country music. It's just more accessible for people.
Right.
And because it's accessible, there's no filtering between anything.
Right.
So like my parents, they go on Facebook. Your cousin goes on Facebook, or whoever goes on TikTok, and everyone's just constantly trying to share their own thing because they finally have access to it now. Right. So that's like the thing where they're waiting for their turn to talk. Right. Because they finally have the ability to do it.
Right. Because and that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Is like when you learn something, you don't need to immediately splash it on to the next person that, you know what I mean? The person that's closest to you. When you it's good to retain information, but I meet so many people, and like I said, I make myself aware of this too, try not to be that guy who retains information and then tries to vomit it all over everyone else. You know what I mean? Because number one, there's like that high ground stand that you're immediately making. Like, it's good to have advice to give in certain situations, right? But I most often find that people need a person who's like on their level to listen. Not above them to give advice. So that's the first problem with it. And then the second problem with it, like I go back to constantly, it's just a focus. You're not focusing on what you have to say. You're focusing on what you need to hear. You know what I mean? And it's like, from that, you can learn so much more about not only yourself, what you're doing, your brand. And I saw a quote that said, it was a quote about time management and basically how time equates to money. I forgot what the quote is, but basically, when you spend your time towards something, when you spend your attention, so pay your attention, you're literally, it's like a bill. You're putting your attention towards something, so you have to spend carefully because you have a certain budget of attention. And with things like reels in general and everything like how everyone's developing right now, I feel as if that attention is slowly lowering. So your budget is like getting tighter. You know what I mean? So you have to be mindful about, you know, how to not only expand your budget, like expand your attention, but where to spend it. Because, you know, where attention, I think it's where energy goes. I forgot what the saying was. It's like where attention goes, energy flows, or something like that. Yeah. But the idea is that, like, again, you pay attention to something, that's where your energy is going. If I'm thinking about what Susan did at work yesterday, that is not what I should be thinking about, because who cares? It's her life. She does whatever she wants. But if I'm focusing on, like, all right, what are we filming today? How am I going to make this episode the best episode I can? How am I going to engage my guest? How am I going to promote his material? How is he going to promote his material? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if I start engaging myself more in those thoughts, it's beneficial. It's more beneficial to me than thinking about other people, you know? Yeah. And I think going back to, like, the energy thing and just having that certain, you pay your attention. And I think this is not just like 22-year-old, 23-year-old, like mind blown because they're finally understanding the concept of reality. But it's a real thing. You would pay your attention. You are paying the bill. And you're sacrificing your time of the day to either entertain yourself or learn something. Right. So, like, that's what a lot of people are, I feel, not getting a good balance of. And it's not no one's fault, right? We don't know how to, counteract what we've made as a society right now. Right. We're a byproduct. And a lot of us don't even want to. A lot of us don't even want to. They're like, let's accelerate it. Let's right. And I think that's the important thing is, like, I hate the whole concept, like I said, with generations, like, you kids and your damn phones, like, you allowed us to do this. You made the technology for us to do this. I tried sitting this the wrong way, my bad. I apologize. You go, I apologize. It's like, that's a real thing. It's like, you've made this ground for us. You paved the way. Right. You're responsible in some essence. Right. Kids going outside or whatever it is, it's like you have to allow your kids to go outside. And I think that's another thing where it's like I mentioned cars earlier, that's still a new technology. What our society has done, I think it's been so detrimental of why kids are also antisocial. Yeah, absolutely. And cars, and I feel like just having like tablets, laptops, phones, it's not a bad thing to have. Actually, I was listening to this guy talk about it. He was like, when these things first came out, I was excited. I was excited when these phones came out because now you have the Wikipedia, the access to knowledge, everything that you need on a phone. I was excited when these things came out, but I was excited up until I saw how sedentary people became because of them. Everyone's now in their room and they're just kind of locked away, and especially at a younger age, like when you're 12, I feel like 12 to 18, that's a huge developmental gap, and you need to fill it with decent information that doesn't make your kid a complete psychopath, you know what I mean, or completely desocialized. But that line is really blurred right now. Like, it's so many people I know are still my age. A lot of them are just they're afraid to go out there and like order a sandwich and stuff like that, or afraid to have that in-person interaction. There's nothing wrong with being socially anxious. Yeah. Listen, I have a lot of social anxiety myself with everyone does to it. I think my mind is like, all right, I want to get better, and the only way I can get better is to overcome the social anxiety. The only way I can get better is to just have the anxiety, have the fear, but still do it. Because I don't think that that's what measures you as a person, is like, oh, I'm afraid or I'm not afraid. Yeah, a lot of people say that. It's like, oh, I'm not afraid. I think what is like your measure of character is like if you're afraid but you still do it. You still launch the podcast, you still launch the business, you still go in debt. You do what you need to do despite what everyone's telling you, despite being told that it's not going to work out, despite you being afraid that it won't work out, or any sort of interaction with people. It's like you have to do what you're afraid of and overcome it, because I feel like the reward is going to be so much greater. And then if you just tuck your tail and hide until you're 60 and then you regret, when you look back on your life, you regret what you did.
I should have done this.
Right.
And I think, and this is not to bash on anyone specifically, but more of a principle I'm really starting to learn. Is I'm really tired of hearing the, I wish I did this. I wish I did this. As there's so many coworkers I've had from different jobs, and like, oh man, I really wish I stuck through it or whatever. And it's like, I think that really comes back to me. It's like, I don't want to do that. Right. I really don't want to be in that position where I say that thing, because it's we have very limited time on this earth. Right. I got another whatever, how many X amount of years. Right. And I have my whole life ahead of me. I'm young. I'm 22, 23. I turn 23 next month. I'm a baby. That's the thing too, is like, I really hate the new generation mindset of being 20 years old. Right. And even 30 years old is like, so many people are like, it's over. Right. What do you mean it's over? We just started. Right. I feel like a kid again, actually. Right. Genuinely, I feel... Well,
that kid wandering.
That kid... I've been one of my favorite memes I've seen lately is like, you're just mad that I experienced childlike wonder. Really? And that stuck with me, right?
That's because funny.
I'm no different in the sense of me being 22 than I was 12 years old, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of that is because it's like, you go through middle school, you go through high school, then you graduate. Right. And you get to that graduation stage, you're like, now what?
Right.
You sit there like, damn.
You had a priority your whole life.
I had a character, right? But that you really, maybe I experienced this, maybe some people don't. But I really had an ego death when I turned 18, well into it when I first started college, right? Right. I had this character assassination. Whoever that person was in the hallways during Eagle Hour, that doesn't exist anymore. Right. Right. And I think that's what a lot of people don't feel comfortable with, in a sense. It's like, who am I now? Right. Not who I was. Right. Because I don't align myself with my 18-year-old self. Personally, if I saw him, I probably want to beat him up. Right. Personally, like, our views and our morals and our politics and everything, I've changed.
Look back on him, he's like, kind of an asshole.
Yeah, you're kind of a douchebag,
man. I'm stalking you out with a group of kids.
I think it's pretty normal for anyone to feel like that, no matter how old you get. Right. But I think, being 22 and 23 years old now, it's like, again, I feel like that same 12, 13-year-old kid where it's like picking up the Lego blocks and really trying to figure out, what can I build out of this? What can I do to make myself feel fulfilled? Again, that's like existentialism with that byproduct of it. Mm. What can I do to make myself happy and fulfilled? That's not just money. Right. Because that's a very capitalistic mindset to have. And that doesn't solve anyone for anyone, in my opinion. Right. I think that's very narrow-minded thing. Oh, I gotta go to college, gotta get a high-paying job. Right. And it's like, what do you do when you got the high-paying job? Right. Me and Dominic were actually, I think, talking about this last night. It's like, there are so many people who are probably millionaires or close to $1 million who are miserable. Because they might have the yacht, they might have a couple houses, they might be able to go wherever the fuck they want at any point, but they don't have a real purpose because they never developed it. They were just chasing the bag the whole time. Nothing wrong with chasing the bag, but as long as you're using the bag to do something that you want to do. Yeah. Right? It's all about reinvestment, because you can make as much money as you want. Let's just say currency doesn't exist by 2030. The currency that we currently use, not crypto, not any of that shit that I don't understand, but real dollar bills, right? Like if any of that went away in 2030, right? It's like, what are you left with, man? Like, you might have gold, you might have silver, but you're still in that financial place. Mm-hmm. You're not thinking outside the box. Everything is a reinvestment. Like, the money you make, you should reinvest in the business you want to start. Yeah. And that's 100%. Like, and the reward you get from that, I mean, you might not feel rewarded the first month, the second month. You might not be as big as you want to be in the first year, 2 years, or 5 years. But if you keep cracking on it, man, you'll definitely get there, 100%. Most people don't make it till they're 40, 50. Right. And I think there's kind of two thoughts I have with this, and they both relate to each other. I think what social media has also been doing to people our age, even younger, a little older, is the toxic positivity and like toxic productivity, the hustle culture has like really toned in. It's like if you're not doing something, you're doing nothing.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, hold on. You got to do nothing to do the something.
Right.
And one of my favorite conversations I had was probably in 2020, and this is where I was really separating like who's my friend and like who's my friend.
Right.
You know, like who actually supports what I'm doing and wants to see me succeed.
Right.
And a conversation I had was like, we went around in a group of people and they're like, oh, what do you picture doing yourself in 20 years? And they're all like, oh, you know, I want to be in a house with a kid and have a car.
Right.
And like, I said something totally different. I was just like, yeah, I want to be making art and like doing something to provide something for people.
Right.
And they're like, what if you don't make it?
Oh,
and I was like, what do you mean by that?
Right.
I'll figure it out.
Right.
Well, like, what if you're like 80 years old and you're a starving artist? I was like, I would much rather have that.
Right.
Because at least I tried to do it. And I felt fulfilled in doing certain projects or whatever it was. But it's better than dying on a hill of just hustle culture. Oh, I gotta have a house, I gotta have a kid, I gotta have a dog, I gotta have a wife, I gotta make sure that I have everything figured out. That way, everything is all happy sunshine on the outside.
Right.
So what people don't want to see too is like, I think a lot of people would be more happy if they express themselves.
Right.
Like and I mean like express yourself.
Right.
Not just say, oh, I'm doing good. But like genuinely sit down and be like, I'm not doing that well, but I can be good in this moment.
So do you think that hustle culture has kind of identified with the house, like kid and like, you know, maybe like 100,000 or $1 million in the bank? It's all about money and like what you could have because you saw like that's what your parents told you should have by a certain age. I think that to add on to what you're saying, we need to redefine that. Hustle culture can still exist, but hustle culture has to be like, okay, right now, Chase, you don't have a wife, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a kid, right? You don't have any real, and I don't mean to say it like this, but you don't have any real things that are genuinely holding you back. Because there are surprising amount of 21, 22, 23-year-olds that are just popping them out like they're Christmas presents. You know what I mean?
Oh
like,
my God.
I'm telling you, like they'll just
don't have kids. Listen, okay.
Because now
kids can be a blessing.
Right.
And I'm not gonna knock any people that I know that have kids.
Right.
Or people that may or may not, whoever watches, if you're saying don't have kids and you have a kid, I love your kid. Okay.
Right. You can still make
your kid good. Okay?
You can still make it with a kid. It's just a lot fucking more.
But there's a lot of people that sit down and like I said with that same set, it's like it's over. Gotta wrap it up.
Right.
Gotta put it in town. Gotta have a kid now. This is what life is.
Right.
We just started.
Right.
We just started.
Right.
We don't need to have the American dream now.
Right.
Not now.
Right.
You can save that for your 30s and 40s. This isn't the 1920s anymore.
Right.
you know, the Great Depression is next, and you need to make sure your son's good enough to work because you're going to get the Black Plague.
Right.
It's not our reality anymore. We're much more privileged that we don't have to do that.
Right. And that's the thing. Like when we're younger, we can focus on a passion. Because I genuinely believe that when I'm 30, 35, I'm more developed. I think that my meaning of life, my purpose may shift to wanting to have a good family and wanting to raise a kid to be someone greater than myself, better than me.
Yeah.
You know, and that I feel like that shift is coming. Obviously, not now, but like I would want a kid in the future. But like having a kid, having a wife, that is a lot. You know what I mean? I'm a person who's young and ambitious and wants to do things. I mean, fuck it. If that's what you want to do, like if you want to just have a kid and settle down and have a family, that's fine. But don't do it because society tells you to
do it.
You want to do it because you want to do it. And for me, I don't want to do that right now. I want to fucking focus on this shit. You know what I mean? I want to focus on the reinvestment thing, making the money from whatever job that I have or bleeding it in, right? We talked about that before the podcast. Like I was talking to you about how I wanted to get into marketing more. Well, this really inspired that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, how do I market the brand? Cool. I've learned a lot about it. Not everything. I'm by no means even intermediate when it comes to it, but I have learned quite a bit. And so I want to take those marketing skills that get me excited to wake up and translate them to other potential companies. Because a lot of people, one of my buddies was telling me about this, he's like, a lot of people don't even know how to speak to people in general, don't even know how to socially interact.
COVID really played a big role.
Wrecked that. But it goes back to how they were developed as well. That 12 to 18-year-old period where they were just in their rooms typing away in fucking Discord chats, which if you were doing that, There's nothing wrong as long as that's not the only thing you were doing, you know?
Yeah.
When COVID came around, people found, I don't want to say excuse because it was pretty mandatory that you stay inside, but people really stretched that shit out. You know what I mean?
Oh, and to the point where stretched it out.
To the point where people are still doing it now, which is incredible because it's like you have so much opportunity. No offense, COVID is basically over. Like, come on. Like, when you walk outside, I'm not saying that you can't get it. I'm not saying that
We've learned what it is more now.
Right, and then people in general don't have, like, it's not a big thing when people are just dying like crazy. I don't know what the stats are, but it couldn't have been as bad as it was when it first showed up on the scene and stuff like that. And so I just feel like now, like, is the best time to just go out there and do something. And like you said, and like I said, like, just let it bleed in. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about organizing your life. Like, for me, that's my personal experience. That's the battle I'm having right now is like, I don't need to organize my life as like job, health, finance, podcast. You know what I mean? It all comes together. You know what I mean? It all comes together to create your, well, not just ethos, because that's like how other people perceive you, but what's the other one where you identify yourself with something?
Oh,
ethos,
like logos and whatnot.
So is logos? Oh no, ethos is that.
Yeah,
ethos.
I want to fact check myself. I need to fact check because I want to make sure before I babble on.
Because you got a person who might be watching this, like a big philosopher.
They're like, wait a minute, Socrates said this. Hold on.
They're pulling out the book.
Yeah. Logos appeals to the audience's reason. Ethos appeals to the speaker's status or authority, and pathos appeals to the emotions.
I would say then ethos. Ethos probably because that is, especially when it comes to marketing, like speaking. I'm not, like, you are trying to appeal to an audience when you do market, but I feel as if you also are trying to, or at least I'm trying to see how good I can get. How can I get you on my side for this? You know what I mean? And it's the art of negotiation.
It's persuasion.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like, to me, I think it's great to sell someone on something. You know what I mean? As long as the sell is, good. Like, you don't want to, like, you should sell your kid. You know what I mean? Like, shit like that is like, I don't know about that. Like,
then we backtrack.
You're taking the skill too far.
But no, I think going into persuasion as well, I think a lot of people have issue, granted, I do too, is like the self-value of like your own work that you put out. I think I'm trying to take like Tyler Creator's like advice more often. He's like, you can't just post your song once and just like, that's it. Like, you need to post that shit every single day on your story, whatever it is. Like, make sure people like know what you're doing.
Right.
Because people miss that. People, they tap. I'm guilty of that. I go on Snapchat when I'm doom scrolling in between doctor's appointment. And I'm
right.
Am I really looking at people's stories or am I scrolling?
Doom scrolling.
No, it's real. It's doom scroll. You're really just it's.
I've never heard of that before. That's interesting.
Doom scrolling is like you're scrolling, but you're not actively scrolling.
Right.
Your fingers are just playing to the motion that you're trained to do at this point. Just this.
Right.
When you're scrolling your stories. Right. Or when you're on TikTok or whatever it is, you're scrolling.
Right.
You're not even actively consuming and absorbing what you're doing. You're just doing it out of habit.
Right.
Like my friend Pierce, shout out to Pierce. He's going to be an amazing architect.
Shout out to Pierce.
Like, seriously, shout out to Pierce. He's going to be an amazing architect because he's very self-disciplined.
Okay.
Because he's like, I'm done. He always comes up to me, he's like, I'm done. I'm like, what's up? He's like, done with Instagram. I'm like, really? He's like, I doom scroll too much. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I kind of like, he explained it like the same way that I did.
Right.
I'm sitting on the couch taking a break, and I'm not actually taking a break. I'm just on my phone scrolling.
Right. I'm
still working, but in a different way.
Right.
Because my brain is automatically doing what it's telling me to do.
Right.
I'm not relaxing. So
right.
He's like,
he made that decision to take himself away from it because it was becoming too big of an issue for him.
Not even an issue for him, but just an issue that people face.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what it's something I need to take advice from my own self is I don't know how to relax. Maybe it's my ADHD.
Right.
But like.
Well, it's funny that you say that because like I'm thinking in my head while you're saying that it's like, do I do that or is it like one of those things where I'm trying to put out every fire? Does that make sense? Because it's like, for me, I don't want to like constantly be nitpicking on the things that might not be as important. Like, to be honest with you, as far as doom scrolling goes, I'm more guilty of not being active on Instagram as much as I should be unless I'm promoting my own content. Which is, I promote other people for sure.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they're like regulars, so to speak. You know what I mean? I promote pretty much the same people. I always expand. I'm always looking to expand. That would be more of an issue than doom scrolling.
Yeah.
So everyone has their own different problems, but how much of that is hurting this? You know what I mean? Or how much more can I do if I bring more people in, like promote more artists for this? You know, so it's like I always think about, like, I always goes back to this, like you can't. There's so many things that happen to people in days, and I'm sure you guys feel this way as well, where something happens, something goes down, you're like, all right, copy. And you just got to move on with your day because there's nothing you can really do about it. It's it is what it is. Or it's such a small issue that you just let it happen. You know what I mean? Just let it continue to happen because it's not really hurting you.
It's not that detrimental.
Exactly.
Where it's affecting anything.
Right. And there's only so much, like I said, that budget. There's only so much you can really pay. You know what I mean? You might be a millionaire in general, but your mind isn't. You know what I mean? Like throughout the day, especially with the ADHD folks.
Oh my God. I think I use that as my superpower, though, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I allow myself to let things bleed.
The art of creativity.
Because one of my big toxic things about myself, I always feel this need to, like, be productive and, like, create.
Me too.
Like, I get home from school, all right, and, like, my way of relaxing is, like, I need to open FL Studio right now. Right. I'm like, I need to just lay down some synthesizers or whatever it is.
Right.
But I'm not relaxing.
Right.
Because at that point, I'm still working in a different manner.
Right.
You know, maybe it's not educational wise, academically, or for a paycheck, but I'm working in the sense of sacrificing my time and my energy to study something else.
Right.
For my own purpose. Then I'm like, as soon as I get bored, I'm like, I'm not feeling this beat.
Right.
Let me animate something. And I go this is actually like, no different than when I was 12 years old. I open up my
12-year-old wandering.
My DSI.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, I'm going to learn Flipnote Studio again. I don't know if you remember what that is or not.
No, not particularly. I've heard of it.
So on the DSI, there was an application called Flipnote Studio.
Is that where you draw?
You draw little animations.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so magical, like, actually relearning it again, because it's like I can just jot down quick ideas and, like, really study the way people animate.
Right.
Right. Best thing I've learned, by the way, is directors and how they do their film. The best directors are actually animators.
Really?
Because they have to compose a shot.
Okay.
And, like, fundamentally actually compose a shot. You can't accidentally make an animation happen.
Right.
You can accidentally make an avant-garde indie film that you present at a film festival because you went to a train track and you set the camera and you're like, wow, that looks sick.
Right.
You know, with animation, like, you really have to, I have to put the train here, and, like, I really got to put this here because I drew it and you got to compose it. Right.
Well, actually, it's funny that we were talking about Michael Kelly. Shout out to Michael Kelly, one of the coolest, like, drawers in general.
Yeah, no, shout out to him. He's very talented.
Very talented guy. But we were talking about the punch. And, like, if two people were to punch, like, when you draw, like, he's very particular about the way he does things. So, like, if two people were to punch and then there was to be, like, some sort of, like, air that comes from that or some sort of, like, reaction, like, look from the two fists coming together, he was talking about how they can't be misplaced. Now, obviously, me, when it comes to drawing, I'm a dummy. So I'm trying to hang on. Because he's really, like, going in. But it shows how particular people are with animation, with drawing in general. It's like, and that's where a lot of it kind of started when it came to art in general. It's like, before we had movies, before we had any of that, like you said, we have thousands and thousands of years of paintings, drawings, hieroglyphics, even stuff like hieroglyphics, which is like alphabetical drawing, so to speak. Like, stuff like that is, like, I don't know, it takes a lot of talent to do, but it's also, people are very particular as compared to something like this, which in comparison is more casual. You know what I mean? Like, I nitpick this, but it's more of like I said, how can I help sell my brand more? How can I have this guy sell what he's doing more? So it's more of that interpersonal interaction. It's not like I'm putting pencil to paper and drawing something, although I do take notes and stuff like that. So you digging your, like, heels into that world and standing firm and willing to take the shots, like, you were to talk about your architecture class, because you talked about that a little bit.
Well, what do you want to know? Well, that's like...
that's the one that's really like that judgmental thing we were talking about, how you present it.
Okay, it is a safe place to a degree, but in the same sense, it's really the tomato room, right? If there's something wrong, like, the tomatoes are going to be thrown at it, right? I really learned that last semester because we had to do architectural graphics.
Okay, what is
architectural graphics? Is the communication of how your building or plan or whatever you're designing is being communicated to someone that does not understand a lick of architecture.
That'd be
right.
Perfect.
If I show you a floor plan to this apartment right now, you can understand it because you're like, oh yeah, that's the door there, that's the walls, and
right.
whatever. There's a communication that needs to be met. Just because I can picture in my mind doesn't mean I'm a good way of communicating it out.
Right. Okay.
Someone could be an excellent designer, but if you don't know what you're talking about, that's the craftsmanship part of it.
Right.
If I can't understand what I'm looking at, then your design means jack shit.
Right.
I don't know what it is.
You're not like selling it to the person.
So all last semester was architectural graphics. Okay, you need to understand how to use a T-square. T-square is this long wooden thing. You push it to the side of the desk and you get a perfectly straight line.
Okay.
And you got to use these triangles, to make sure you get your 45-degree angles.
I was just thinking about geometry.
It's fun because in high school I hated math.
Really?
I hated math, and now all I'm doing right now is math.
That's what I was thinking. Like you have
I'm
to
self-disciplining myself to actually learn math so I can design things I want to design.
Right.
Because kind of branching off, I think it's very important that people understand architects are not just buildings, right? I think my biggest takeaway from this when I get licensed as an architect, I'm not going to just limit myself to a skyscraper or a suburban home.
Right.
If I want to design a pair of glasses, I now fundamentally have the tools to do so.
Right.
Because everything in architecture is to scale. This is 12 inches, this is 1/8 to an inch, whatever it is.
Right.
You really got to dial in on the scale of it.
Right.
So it's people walk away and they can design whatever they want.
Right.
I can design a cup.
Right.
Because I know the circumference of the cup and the diameter and how to get to the right thickness because that's what architecture is.
Right.
It's the fundamentation of actually designing something and communicating your ideas.
Okay.
So once I did graphics and I did my final project, which was, I poured 150 hours into that project.
Really?
That's how time consuming it is. It was all done by hand inked, hand measured, hand transferred, everything.
What were you doing? What was the project?
So we had a book. It's called Key Houses of the 20th Century.
Key Houses, okay.
And it's this big book. It's like a coffee table book, honestly.
Right.
And you gotta flip through it and go, all right, you're gonna take this house and you gotta recreate everything to it by hand.
Really?
But change its scale. Right? So my house.
Does it have to be smaller or bigger?
Bigger. Because you're taking it from a book. Right?
Okay.
So the floor plan is literally this big in the book.
Oh,
and I really had to elevate that by 3 times the amount it actually is.
Really? All right.
So we get to pick the house we wanted to do, but we had to, again, go through the book and really find something that aligned with us, first of all. So I picked this house called the Talon House. It's located in Dublin, Ireland.
Okay.
And it's from this guy named Ronnie Talon, and he was a big modernist in Ireland at the time.
Okay.
He really pushed for a lot of the new idealism in that area.
Okay.
He was actually inspired by a lot of Chicago architecture.
Really? All right.
So I did this project. Not only did you do everything, we had to research it.
Right.
So poured a bunch of hours researching the guy, researching it, why he made it, blah, blah, blah. But then we got to take everything and measure it by hand.
Right.
We have these things called scales. So I have 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch,
right.
1/4 of an inch.
Right.
And I really got to, I'm like, okay, my first was this is a 1/8 scale. Blow it up to 1/4.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
Mathematically, it's simple. That seems
double.
Simple. That's just double.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
But then you really think about it, you're like, oh damn, I have to measure every single line that I'm seeing right now. So I goes from the doorway to the wall to this little step. So everything I did, I can show you after. I'll show you the project because it was crazy. I've never been so self-disciplined in my entire life.
Right.
So
150 hours.
150 hours.
That's
it's
crazy.
all done by hand. So it consisted of 4 boards.
Okay.
And these are 30 by 40 boards. That's the size of a 50-inch TV.
Really?
Now imagine 4 50-inch TVs on a wall displaying my project.
Really?
That's not even including the concept model. Because now I have to take whatever I did to make it 3D.
Right. And
so everything that's flat on here, I had to make 3D.
Damn.
So 150 hours of port resistance, it taught me okay, this is how.
And that was going to be displayed in front of the class, right?
Everyone.
Okay.
Everyone that was there.
That's perfect.
I really got to stand up.
No anxiety at all.
I'm like, oh wow.
Right.
Oh wow, I can see the line that I fucked up there.
Right.
But now this part of the studio is straight design. We're not even building a house yet.
Okay.
We're doing literally it sounds silly out loud, but construction paper and foam board. I'm literally cutting out pieces of paper and gluing it down on the foam board. I'm doing kindergarten activities right now.
Tutorial wandering. You called it.
No, seriously. And then what my professor's teaching us right now is you're experiencing childlike wonder, but I'm going to judge you on your craftsmanship of this.
Right.
Can you glue this down and make it look good?
Right.
can you cut this out and make it straight?
Right.
Can you portray your ideas and what your concepts were?
Right.
Without also making this look like a 3-year-old did it.
How did everyone react to the design you had?
Mine went good. I can show you that art piece after.
Right
now we're all doing abstract art right now.
Okay,
it's very interesting.
So it's like your mind applied rather than just focusing on one specific thing. All right.
It's all abstract.
That must be more
shapes.
That must be more. I mean, even though it is just shapes and there are certain criteria you have to meet, that must be less limiting than just focusing on the house. Because the house,
it's more limiting because you have less. Because you have to meet a certain criteria. So like the project that I did this thing called Bad News at the Water Jug.
Bad News at the Water Jug.
Bad News at the Water Jug.
Wow.
It's literally just, to put it in the most simplest form, like it's a yellow stick with a circle.
Okay.
There's another blue stick in the middle.
Okay.
And there's a red stick with like a square that's pointed slightly down.
All right.
Right? If you really look at it, you're like, oh wow, it's a guy, there's a water jug in the middle, and the other guy's just like kind of looking down sad.
Right.
Bad News at the Water Jug.
Right.
But when you look at it, it's literally just construction paper on a foam board.
Okay.
But the criteria was that you have to use X amount of shapes, X amount of colors,
and
X amount of size.
All right. So the criteria
these are the pieces in the puzzle that I'm going to give you. Right. Well, I'm not going to tell you what the puzzle is. You just got to make it. So it's almost more limited because you're like,
you have to fit everything.
I gotta make do. Like I literally have to put 3 red squares and 4 yellow ones and 5 different blue ones and make it fit and make it look good. Right. So it's very limited and then present it to people. Right. So like half the people when I presented it were like, they're like, what the hell? What is that? Like we're like, oh, I see it. Right. And my professor's like, oh, yeah, I see. Okay.
So he was complimentary. He was cool.
She. Oh my god. She's awesome.
Okay.
She's very like.
Well, we were talking about that earlier. It's like when you have the class compared to the teacher. Obviously, if you're in a classroom setting, you're gonna want the teacher to like it at least more than you think more about whether the teacher's gonna like it than the actual class itself, right? Yeah. It's not like a moral thing. That's just kind of a smart thing. When you're doing art in general, I mean, it can be subjective, but if she's presenting the criteria, then it's her. It's like judging and fighting. Like the audience could love the fight, but it doesn't matter. If all the people in the arena, we see it so many times. If all the people in the arena think one fighter won, and the judges start fucking up. And this happens more in MMA, but it does happen in boxing too. And the judges think that this other dude won. Well, what's official on the records books? They weren't saying, well, Madison Square Garden thought that Sean Strickland won the fight. No, Dricus du Plessis took the fight. They're the people
they're the ones with the experience.
Right.
They know what happened.
Right.
As opposed to the audience that's just interpreting what happened. So that's why I don't really care about my classmates and how they view the project. Because what they think is not going to give me the grade. Right. What she thinks right now is going to be like the detrimental things, like, damn, like, did I really follow what she wanted me to do right now? Right. Because she's a client. Right. So that's what she's teaching us right now, is the client. Right. When a lot of architecture built your user and your client are 2 different things. Right. Your client is someone that's hiring you to do it, and they're giving you, okay, this is your 100 by 100 feet plot of land. Right. Make something happen. Right. Can't go out of it. It's against the law. It's against the law. You can't go out of that restriction zone that you're able to build.
Would you be arrested?
You can be arrested. You can be fined. You can have your license architecture revoked.
That's what I would imagine.
It's very
imagine being in a county jail cell, telling people the story. I did this floor incorrectly.
I'm 3 feet off the plot of the land. But it's generally, it's a very serious thing because there's zoning regulations and there's housing regulations, and you can't have too much noise here because it's going to affect the noise over here.
Are you in any way? No, I don't want to say concerned because you're so deep in now. It's you can't go back. You're focused. This is. I mean, you could, but this is something you want to do. Do you ever think about those things in the future, as far as how clients are going to want certain things and how you would kind of negotiate your way? Because if a client hires you for something, but you have your own ideas about how it should be or whether it would be better this way. Yeah. Do you think about would I tell the client that, or would I just be a good little bee and buzz? You know what I mean?
I think I'm very stubborn. I will admit that I'm a super stubborn person. Right. Especially I will relate this back to music because there's a lot of things when I get in FL Studio and I'm like, okay, I really love this. Right. And my girlfriend will come over. Love Cheyenne. Shout out to Cheyenne. Keep this man. She keeps me in check. She keeps me in check. Right. She's like, that bass line sucks.
Oh, really?
Like, no, like, I loved it.
Right.
And then she's like, no, like, seriously, like, from an outside perspective, like, it's not that great.
Right.
Because it sounds good in your headphones, it does not sound good on my speakerphone right now.
Right.
Like, damn it.
Right.
But, like, that's important feedback. It's more of mediating and negotiable middle ground.
Right.
As opposed to, like, if a client is like, I want this modern house. And I'm like, I don't really want to build you a modern house. Then we weren't meant to be clients. Why did you even hire me to begin with? You know, you didn't look into my work.
Right.
But in that same aspect, though, it's like, I want a modern house that's 2 stories tall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I want to do a modern house that's 3 stories tall.
Right.
Okay, maybe we should meet in the middle and make you a basement instead.
Right.
That way you have 3. I get my 3 floors, you get your 2 floors.
Right.
Now we have multi-purpose function, and I can give you something that's a bit of me, and you can give me something that's a bit of you.
Right.
So that's like the whole, again, the communication that comes together for it, and like meeting that criteria.
That's interesting that you said that, because like between the client and the architect, like there's probably like a not gap, but this is probably what's negotiated the most is money. Like, how much are you going to pay me for
budgets
doing
are
this?
huge things. Yeah.
Right. And so like you might need to make budget cuts or whatever. But like if you are with a client and she's like, oh, well, I'm only going to pay this amount, and you, like, let's just say she's like, I'm only going to pay 60 grand, but you're charging 65, right?
Yeah.
Well, you got to consider in your head whether that $5,000 is worth giving up to just take the 60 and dip, or you got to be that, try to like access that negotiating side of you is like, all right, let me ask you a question. Do you like cheap things? Because I don't. I don't like cheap property. You know what I mean? So you say that to the client, she's more inclined to be like, I feel like, oh, because I was watching some, obviously I'm getting more into marketing and sales. I was watching a clip of this guy who was like, pressure is good in negotiating as long as you're pressuring someone to do the right thing. Not always should it be used like any tool. You don't always use a wrench, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But like, it is a good tool to have. It's like when you are able to pressure someone into doing the right thing, whether it be paying you more so that way you could supply them with a better product, you know what I mean, than her going to this journeyman, paying him 40 and then her house falling apart or having leaks and stuff like that. Like the amount of times
that's where bad architecture comes. There's plenty of bad architecture.
Right, like,
there's
really?
a lot of like
journeyman.
It's funny because now when I look around, I observe everything in a building now.
Mm-hmm.
It's so strange. Like I look at the ceilings, I'm looking at the trims, I'm looking at the way they're like, why is that placed there? I'm like, you know, like, I really think, because now I'm in those shoes. I'm like, if I designed this, like I would have done that. That's
right.
But no, like negotiations, it is a huge thing.
Chase be going through malls talking shit.
No, seriously, like
I look at the escalator, like, what the fuck were they thinking?
I look at the mall, I'm like, why do you find that?
Oh, dude, everyone goes to the Enfield Mall and is like, what's happening?
What's happening here?
What is going on?
But no, negotiating is a huge thing.
Right.
And I think actually the biggest way I learned negotiating was video games.
Really?
Surprisingly. I'm a huge collector.
Okay.
Right. I think that's like my pastime where I really escape is a lot of video games. That's where it motivates me. And I'm not like gamer wise of like, oh, I play competitive. Like, I'm talking about straight sit down, play a video game.
Right.
But there's a lot of stories to be told, there's a lot of art, there's a lot of music, there's a lot of direction, and again, that composition that's really carefully taking place. Like, I love horror games.
Okay.
But if you don't know, the video game market is very expensive right now.
Right.
Because after COVID happened in 2020, everything came crashing down, everyone got nostalgic, kind of like, I really want to play my PS2 game. And then everybody wanted to get their PS2 game, and now Silent Hill 3 is worth $170.
Really?
Yeah. So I go to these game conventions, and you're right, doing the right thing. It's like when you research the market, and that's no matter what market you get into, research it.
Right.
Know what you're talking about before you go buy something. Because I think that's like the most ill-informed thing people do. Is like they want it, so they just go buy it.
Right.
No. Stop.
Right.
Research it.
Right.
So I go to these things, I go to these conventions, and like I see it again. I'll bring Silent Hill back up to the equation. This guy's selling it for like $150.
Right.
And there's this thing called price charting, and I know it completed in box is worth $90. I'm like, that is $60 above the market value right now.
Really?
I'm like, I'm not dumb.
Right.
He's not stupid.
Right.
And he knows I'm not stupid because I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna offer him $90 for it.
Right.
And guess what he does? He gives it to me for $90 because
Really?
I know the answer to that. There's
Right.
a negotiation and I pressure. I'm like, listen, man, I know that's not worth $150. That's worth $90.
Right.
I'll give you $90 for it right now.
Right.
And then ooh,
They cut.
They cut. It's like,
Right.
okay.
Because they're
yeah,
caught.
yeah. It's like,
That's
all
interesting.
right. Yeah, I think that's important with negotiations.
So he was the one
what
who
you're
was
negotiating.
So he was the one that was ill-willed. He was the one that just showed up at the convention thinking that he could sell a game.
Well, that's the whole resale market, because that's not even just video games. That's literally, that's a huge thing that's taking over right now is resale culture, and I am not for
pawn shops are popping, most likely.
Like, okay, pawn shops are different. I think
like old school. Like, I don't need this dresser.
I'm
like,
more talking about the hustle culture right now with reselling,
right? And
I think Gary Vee, in a way, has kind of pushed too much of that.
Who's Gary Vee? I've heard of him.
Gary Vee's like a motivator, like leadership guy. He's got great solid advice. You've probably seen clips of him.
I know what you're talking about, right?
He has a lot of good advice, but he's also been like, you gotta flip. Go flip different items. Go flip. You gotta go flip these different dressers. Go flip Chinese antique plates and stuff. But it's like you're almost revoking the initial purpose of why people enjoy those things. It's like same with shoes. Like, you have these shoes on the market on StockX that are like $2,500, and at that point, it's like, is that really worth, or is that what we're just saying it's worth?
Right.
You know, it's like, is there actual value here just because it was limited release, or is it just because people happen to make one sale off $2,500, so they got one gullible person to do it? Is this actually the morally correct thing in the market? Right. And I think that's a really big thing that's happening right now is, again, like that hustle culture. People trying to make money quick and they flip things, and it's like there's almost no negotiating rate right now. A lot of people just buy it because they see it. Like Stanley Cups. Oh my God, if I see one more video on the Stanley Cup thing, I'm going to lose my mind.
I don't know what's going on with that. What's happening?
Starbucks did. You know what Stanley is?
I've seen
like a cup, like the hydro glass type cup.
Yeah.
Starbucks and they do like a collaboration, like a Valentine's Day cup. It's like red. That's literally the only thing. It's literally a red cup. Really? And people freaked out. They went to the Targets and everything, and they immediately bought all of them, and they're reselling on eBay. Why? Because people want them. Because people want them.
That's a strange thing.
So people that don't even want them go and buy them because someone else wants them. Right. It's a supply and demand thing.
Well, I'm gonna start selling these hustle signs. Seriously. 3,100 in first bidder.
No, seriously, like that's the thing that people do. It's like, oh wow, like let me go to this. I don't want this cup, but I can resell it on eBay right now for $100. Right. It was originally $40. Right. I mean, props to you. You beat everyone to the game, but at the same sense, it's like at what cost? Right. Cool, you made financial, but it's like, what are you doing to the culture at that point? Right. And the people that actually enjoy that thing.
And on top of that, that's a specific probably issue with collectors more than people like me. Because I feel like there are users and there are collectors, right? Yeah. I'm more of a user. I'm a person, I buy something to use it. Yeah. I don't buy something to just look at it. You know, I've never really even been that person. Like, you might buy shoes and you're like, all right, I'm not going to wear those as often. But I don't buy shoes and I'm like, I'm never going to wear those. But I'm going to put them up on like the shelf and like show them. You know, like everything for me has a purpose. But there's nothing wrong with being a collector, a person.
No. I'm a collector. Right. I'm a collector and a user. Right. I think it's a matter of what you do with it.
I think, well, like chains. Chains are a good example. Like, I don't collect chains, but I picked up this piece once and then I thought it was cool. I was like, all right, because I was up in Boston. And I was like, we passed this jewelry shop in like by Quincy Market. I don't remember if it was in, but it was by Quincy Market. And I was like, you know what? I've never bought myself a piece of jewelry. You know what I mean? And recently, I've been kind of getting like closer to God, the Jesus phase. Yeah. I'm not like, you know, wearing a dress around the apartment or anything like that. I'm not doing anything wild, but like, I do like have the like. Want to kind of buy more stuff like that. Like if I am going to get into chains, buy more like crosses because there are a lot of cool ones I see. So I saw this and I'm like, I've never picked up this piece, and it was a little bit expensive, but I really like it and I wear it like all the time. Now I don't want to wear it so much to the point where like it's raining out and I constantly am like wearing it and it just fucking starts to like I don't know what would happen to jewelry if like rust. It wouldn't rust, but it would like start to just look bad. You know, I don't want that to happen, but at the same time too, I don't want to just put this on my shelf and be like, all right, I'm never going to touch that, you know? Because it's like, I know I purchased it for X amount and I want to be able to wear it around because I feel like it's a cool thing that kind of represents me and it just makes me feel good, you know? So like, I feel as if with users and collectors, like you could be both, but you're really a lot of times just one or the other. But it also depends on what you're doing, what you're grabbing. Like a lot of people like might not think of anything as far as shirts go or shoe or pants, but they might be the biggest shoe collector you've ever met in your life. You know, so I think that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like you said, that idea of trying to undersell or oversell, especially oversell what you're putting out, and like how that can impact the demographic or the people who would buy that or enjoy that. You know,
it's affecting everything right now.
Right.
And like, because what I do is a lot is it's investment pieces, right? It's happening in music,
right?
We've moved, and this is a whole other like thing is like digital versus physical,
right?
And like what that's done to our society and how we consume different media or whatever it is, digital and physical. But physical music technology has gone up because people, Rufus can definitely
nostalgia, right?
Not even just nostalgia, but like technology can be golden and stay golden for what it is, right? Like I said, cars, that's a golden technology that was made and people still use it.
Right.
Fundamentally the same.
Right.
And the same thing goes for an old synthesizer.
Right.
My girlfriend was yelling at me.
Really?
Right, on my 21st birthday. I've been looking for this synthesizer for so long in my life.
Right.
It's the Casio, right? And it's this Casio, and I originally been doing a lot of research on it, and I saw it at her aunt's place. And her uncle has it. He got it from his father. And it's a CZ101, right? And I'm like, oh my God, Cheyenne, do you know what synthesizer that is? And she's like, no. I'm like, yeah, no figure. That synthesizer is worth like $400 or $500.
Right.
I'm like, it's just sitting there.
Right.
And I'm like, we gotta chop it up with your uncle. Like, I want the synthesizer.
Right.
Like, this is not being used.
Right.
And then I hear, oh my God, yeah, like, I just let the kids play on it when they run on the treadmill. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I finally find this synth again.
Right.
And not her uncle's, but I find it in this music store in Brattleboro, Vermont.
Okay.
We went there for my 21st birthday. We stayed at a little Airbnb and whatnot. It's the
Right.
last day.
Right.
And my girlfriend's like, no way, it's here right now. I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm gonna buy it. She's like,
right.
Whoa! I'm like, you can't just buy it. That's $300. Because I was like, it's a really good price. You don't understand.
Right.
And so, like, I know $300 is a lot right now, but in the future, like, this is worth thousands. Like,
right.
Well, what my time can be, so it's the same.
Right.
Bought it. She was mad at me for like the first week. She's like, I can't believe you bought this instrument. I'm like, oh my God, like, you spent so much money. Like, you always treat yourself on your birthday, but you spent so much money. I'm like,
right.
Listen, you don't understand what this means to me.
Right. I'm gonna buy us a house with this.
and I don't use it all the time. Like I said, like a chain. I don't use a synthesizer every time I open up my DAW and start making music.
Right.
But when I do use it, oh my God, I've made some of the best music I've ever made.
Is that just because of the feeling that you have because of the synthesizer is there?
I think that plays a huge role into it.
Okay.
But I think with it being there and I know so much about it, I've been able to actually study it.
Right.
Because it's physical.
Right.
And that's like the huge problem I feel why a lot of producers start making the same music.
Right.
Over and over and over again. I fall into about the type beats on YouTube or whatever it is. They start making the same beats. You get into a pattern. Oh, I can make a trap beat. I can make a trap beat in 5 seconds. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
But like that's not what I'm trying to do for myself.
Right.
But I've been able to hone in on the physical element of this and like press a button and be like, what does this do?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I just did something. I don't know what it did. It could ruin everything right now.
Right.
Because there's a lot more sacrifice.
But isn't that the adventure though?
Oh, that's the full adventure.
That's like if you make the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Like I was talking to you about, I'm not gonna talk about it now because it's a cool thing that I want to kind of put out later. But I was talking to you about how this is not always going to be podcasting.
No, I think you gotta explore
exactly
and allow yourself to explore.
And there's an interesting way of like starting with mastering this and getting this down, and then still having this like a tool in your toolbox. Mm-hmm. It is yet again just something you can grab and be like, oh, this is cool. I can have this person promote his material. We could talk about like spitball like we did now kind of deal, and then I can move this into whatever what I do have planned later on this month, and then maybe events, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like just interesting shit like that. It's there's no tail end to what you can do as long as you're willing to sacrifice and explore. Mm-hmm. There just isn't. People who stay the same, whether they start the business and they stay the same with the business, they're not evolving. They're sticking out what they knew was good. But the problem is, what's good now is not going to be good on Tuesday.
No.
It's not going to be good on Saturday. This world moves so fucking quickly. You got to keep up with that, but also balance that between what you like, because you don't want to put out shit you don't like. Because it's trendy.
Yeah, and I think that's also my toxic thing too. Is I'm so much of a perfectionist myself that like I isolate everything off. Like I've been working on 2 EPs simultaneously.
Really?
And like I understand what I want to do, but I don't know if I've exactly found it.
Right.
You know, like I'm on that adventure to finding that thing.
Right.
It relates a lot to my existentialism, my communication with people. Sorry, not people. But like I'm naming the projects. Can you text the people I love? And can you DM my friends back?
Really?
Right.
That's cool.
My big problem is if I open my phone up right now, I have like 500 messages on like my texting app.
Really?
And I'm not Mr. Popular. It's not even that. It's only just because like I think everyone falls victim to it. It's like actually Rufus brought it up.
I was just about to say that.
It's like I don't even have the energy. I got text from like a year ago. I'm like, what's the point of messaging back now?
It was hilarious because he looked at his phone. He's like, you ever just look at your phone and you're like, okay, and he just puts that shit down.
And like, so that's why it's like a lot of the original story of that title actually is funny enough. Me and my girlfriend were going into this local store called Matt Sports and Comics. Love them. They're awesome. They sell manga and all sorts of things.
Okay.
And she gets out of my car and she had her phone in her lap. She forgot her phone was in her lap. She gets up and I get out of the car and there's like, if you know the road, it's Hazard Ave.
Okay.
So it's car, we're on the park side of the street, but it's next to that preschool and whatnot.
Okay.
If you know where that is.
I know where you're talking.
Like the subway and the Shell.
Yeah.
And I hear, oh no. And I look at her like, Shai, don't tell me you dropped your phone in the sewer. And then she goes, I dropped my phone in the sewer. Oh man. And then like, she like, can you text the people I love? And all of a sudden like, I froze. I literally froze in that moment. I take my phone out and I go in my notes app and I'm like, can you text me? And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, naming my next album.
Yeah.
She's like, this is not the time for that.
Right.
But that's something that really stuck
It
with me.
bleeds
like, that
in.
Statement
we were just talking about that. It bleeds in.
It's like that life experience and like how that takes craft.
Right.
And I think my problem is I don't ever have enough time or energy to get back to everyone and every acquaintance and friend and everything. And I feel guilty of that. So I think what I want to channel through this next project is like, can you text the people I love back?
Yeah, but
can you DM my friends back?
Well, me and you, and we were talking about that, when you're on go, it's like, it's one of those things where you prioritize certain people and you don't prioritize others. And whether we need to work on that or not, I think so. I think I should, absolutely, because I do feel guilty about it. But at the same time as well, I feel like everyone does it, and I'm not saying everyone does it, I should do it. I should be more aware of it.
Yeah.
And I probably should just, like, because I don't want to feel like I have to text this person.
It shouldn't be I have.
Because why are you guys interacting to begin with?
Exactly.
So, but I feel like you guys can, like, if you did it as fast as possible, just got it out of the way, like right there. I hate to say it like that, but like you did it when it happened. It's like solving problems when they happen. Like say you have to get your engine oil changed, right? Well, you do that as soon as the maintenance, thing comes up, on the car. Like the check engine light. Like you do that as soon as it happens or within a few days. So that way you make sure that you're not getting fucked over.
Yeah.
Which I know car experts and gurus are like, technically it can last like 5,000. It's like, I get that. But if I get it out of the way now, I won't have to wait for that 5,000 miles in my engine to be like, chirr, 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 like.
Well, I think a lot of it though is, it all ties back into how people are like really on their phones all the time. And really like, that's a new communication. And if you know me, it's like, you can't text me. Again, maybe it's the ADHD, but it's just like, I can't text people back because my energy and focus is just completely elsewhere. And like, that you had my attention. I could see it on my Apple Watch, and I'm like, I gotta respond back. Bird, It's like that's how it is.
Right.
So I think with like the project that I'm working on, it's like almost like a love letter to that experience that we're doing in a modern age. It's like, can you text the people I love?
Right.
Not can you text them back, but it's just more of the emphasis on, should we be texting the people we love or should we be communicating
That's interesting.
with the people we love?
Right.
Like being present. I have friends, but I say my best friends right now are a small group of people.
Right.
It's just literally I'm gonna shout them out because it's like I can put them on like on one hand right now.
Let's go.
Like Devin Rentler. I'm at the government names right now.
Yeah, he's going full on.
These are the people.
Social security numbers will follow.
Like my boy Devin Rentler, my boy Ben Legac, my boy Nick Snow, my girlfriend Cheyenne Underwood, my friend Austin Henry. If I'm forgetting anyone else, like in particular, it's not a diss, but these are like my core people.
On the bright side, those text messages should stop
like,
now.
I'll respond to them pretty quickly because it's like, shit, I probably gotta do that.
Right.
But it's like other people, it's like, again, it's not that I don't want to, but it's almost like I get anxious to do it because it's like, my attention needs to be somewhere else.
Right.
And if I invest too much time into this one thing right now, I'm losing the focus of what I was originally doing. And at that point, what was I doing to begin with?
Right.
If you want to communicate me, call me.
That's
text. Like, don't text me. Call me. Right. FaceTime me. I don't get. I know that's the thing that my friends get annoyed about all the time. I FaceTime them.
Right.
I don't text you. I FaceTime you. I want to see you.
Right.
I want to see your face.
Or call.
I want to hear your voice.
Right.
And I want to hear your emotion.
Right.
Because texting does not translate.
I'm right there with you, man.
It doesn't translate.
I'm a terrible texter myself. I can't keep up with it, and it's not just because I'm a slow texter. Number one, like I'm not really good at typing like fast at all. So I know that it's already going to be a slow process. But beyond that, it's like you said, that emotion, and I feel like that's what you bring to the table as far as your work goes. It is emotion. And I feel like for talking to the people that you love, talking to the people who are close to you, you do have emotion with them. It's not a coercion of like, there's nothing wrong with texting. But if you're texting an argument out or you're texting your emotions out, like as far as how you feel and you're sad and you have the time to call that person, but you don't, that's not ideal. Just because there's so many miscommunications that happen in text.
I think most people, and you know what I find funny about high school drama and the people that still hold grudges and everything? It's all done on the phone.
Right.
It's all done on the phone. I saw what you said. And it's like, bro, if we just talked to begin with, like we wouldn't be in this predicament.
Much easier. I'm not saying it always goes well.
It's not a one-to-one aspect.
But it is much easier to talk to a person because you can look them in their eyes and actually speak to them.
You can be honest, and I think that's what a lot of people need to do more.
Absolutely.
And I think what I've done personally, and I think more people can be more in tune with this as well. Maybe this not me being like a Thor, whatever kind of figure, but like being more aligned with the way you express yourself and being vulnerable to doing it.
Yeah.
Because what you're feeling is what you're feeling, and you shouldn't really be ashamed for feeling that way.
I agree.
You know, like this past couple of years, it's like I've gotten raised a lot of questions for the stylistic choices I've done or the way I carry myself. It's like, oh, like why are you doing this? It makes me happy.
Right.
I think that's what people need to start doing. Just like do things that make you feel happy, not because someone told you to make you feel happy or it makes you look cool. Do things that obviously you think are cool, but like do it because it makes you happy.
Right.
I think that's such like a big focus point. It's like if you really allow yourself to be vulnerable and take in pleasure in the activities that you like, you can gain so much from that.
Right.
And that's what I've done my past 4 years of being out of high school. It's like going back to my roots, childlike wonder.
Right.
I really enjoyed this. It's like, why did I stop?
Right.
Why? Because other people told me that it wasn't cool anymore.
Right.
This shit's still fucking cool.
Right.
Like, I don't care.
He's like, it's dope as fuck. I don't know what you guys
but cool, you don't have as much interest in it. And I think that's what's also important. Like, find friends that, like, support that. And they don't have to know everything about your niche, random obscure interest.
Right.
But if they be like, this makes you happy and I support that.
Right.
I'm happy you do that.
Absolutely.
I think that's so fundamental. And I think that's where people get lost in the waves of, like, finding a core group of people.
Right.
And finding things that are happy.
Right.
Like, my biggest critique right now is, or not biggest critique, but like I have these big giant pink earmuffs, right?
Okay.
And I have my pink Telfar bag. It's this like designer purse, right? I've also been dabbling in just random fashion choices.
Right.
You know, going between the line of what's more masculine and feminine.
Right.
Because there's a thing where it's like there doesn't need to be a binary thing of like what just aligns you to that one aspect of it.
Right.
So like if you feel a certain way, just express it.
Right.
It shouldn't really matter at that point. It makes you happy.
I was going to say, that adds on. It's like, you really shouldn't be thinking too much into what other people are doing like that.
No.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you're focusing on why people have a certain style of earmuffs on, your mind is not in the right spot. It's so
elsewhere.
Right, exactly. It's like focusing on other people. It's like you should get so focused on what you're doing that you don't even pay attention to what other people are up to. It doesn't mean you don't care about them. You always are checking in on them. They're close to you, people that you love. But you use them as like a fuel. Like, I don't want to let these people down. I don't want to let myself down, the people that are closest to you. But if it's like a stranger on the street or somebody on social media that says something about the way you shoot a podcast or the way that, you know, your art looks or anything like that, it's like, all right, cool. And it could be constructive criticism. You could take something away from that. But I saw a Keanu Reeves quote where basically he was talking about like how people who are like there are 7 billion people in the world, and if you talk to one of those people and they're just an asshole, right? Yeah. You should actually thank them because there are 6,999,999 other people who are. I'm sorry. I did that incorrectly. But the point is, that's one less person for you to value. You know what I mean? And so I feel like in that case, you'd be like, all right, thank you. I'm gonna go talk to these other people and see what they can bring to my life. Like that one person didn't bring anything to you, and that's why, you know, getting involved in like specific situations, like I was telling you before this episode was shot, you know, getting involved in those kinds of situations, that's where the regret comes in, because you didn't need to put your energy into that. You didn't need to spend your time doing that. Were you doing the right thing? Maybe, but at the same time too, what was it worth? What did it cost you? You know, like it cost you something that you valued, and you don't want.
What piece of you did you sacrifice?
Right.
Your integrity because someone else told you no.
Exactly.
And I think, like for example, I walked into my pre-cal class one day, and this other girl, she was like, "That's an awfully pink bag," and I'm like, "Cool, you are very observant to the color or something."
Yeah.
like cool, like
right.
And I'm really
I'll take it off next time.
Like, my friends around me were like, "That was strange."
What the fuck?
And I think it's important, like, don't just be friends with people that share the same. Again, I'm more talking like on a fashion approach, because I think fashion is a very big emotional thing that people carry with them. I think a lot of fashion can tell you a lot about some person. Not that you should be prejudiced towards that, but you should take into consideration, like, oh, they're wearing this thing. They must feel a little bit like this, and I should value that they feel like this right now.
Right.
Like, oh, if he's wearing sweatpants, he wants to feel a little bit more relaxed right now.
Right.
He wants to be more casual. He doesn't need to be super serious, but he can still talk serious, but he wants to feel less condoned down.
Right.
So it's like, your friends should not have the same drip as you always.
Right.
I think that's like a big thing, because then you are
unless you're like in a band, like it's like a weird
unless it's like a coerced theme. But your friends, I don't think your friends should always have the same style as you.
I agree.
Because then you put yourself in an echo chamber that only allows for the one thing that you enjoy, and that's it. To then like devalue everything else.
Right.
And that's where like culture comes in. Like when I went to the Netherlands over this last summer, I took a solo trip to the Netherlands to visit my cousins. I got to see so many individualistic people, because over there, like people, I feel a lot more people, this is going to be just me being a dumb American, whatever you want to call it, but it's like a lot of people carry themselves because they're carrying themselves.
Right.
Like, you know, I found less people on their phones. I found less people that were, you know, just kind of elsewhere.
Right.
They were like very present in the moment and with the way they wanted to carry themselves.
Right.
I thought that was a very good takeaway from that. Like,
absolutely.
I'm walking around The Hague in the Netherlands, and like I'm seeing people dressed from Middle Eastern practices to Asian practices to some Americans that are being in a very American way, the way they dress.
Right.
But no one is over yelling over each other over there, like, this is what you need to wear, this is what you need to follow, this is the trend you gotta follow.
Right.
Because this is what's popular right now.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of the society over here right now is just like, this is what's cool, and if you're not a part of it, you're kind of lame.
Right.
And it's like, no. There's a lot of layers to this, and there's a lot of good things you can take away from this. Like, you can take a cowboy boots and match it with a pair of random vintage jeans from the 90s and put a trucker hat on. You're like, you got a whole different thing on right now.
Right.
And you've shown your ways of interest and your value as a character, and the things you appreciate in life, and brought that to a new level.
Right.
To a new way to express that.
I like that you said that, because it's like you're taking something positive, something good, something for you to learn from every interaction.
Yeah.
Even if it is something like an experience over in the Netherlands. It's like it's one of those things for you where it seems like you're approaching that more than the happiness philosophy that you were just talking about. But I feel like you do take something away from every interaction, good or bad, and but in a good way. Like, okay, I learned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even if I fucked up, even if I lost, I learned. And as long as you can do that, man, you just get better all the time.
You can't be failing is not like you need to fail.
Right, exactly.
You really need to
There's
fail.
no like immediate like shoot up, all right, take the elevator up. It's like steps missing, you know what I mean? Like,
especially with my clothes. Like, I literally had to learn how to screen print.
Right.
And if I literally went, damn, that's awful. I'm never touching this again.
Right.
I wouldn't be wearing this shirt right now.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people are very, very afraid of. And if I can give it any advice, just don't be afraid of it.
Right.
Be happy to fail. Because if you don't fail, then you never learn what made you successful to begin with.
100%, man. 100%. I was gonna say, to cap off this episode, is there anything you want to promote? Any additional work that you want to promote? Because I know you're doing a lot of different things right now, but what can we expect from you in the next few months, next year?
I'll say more long-term future.
Okay.
Because I think I'm very mixed up with dates and stuff. I'm always like, my friends always yell at me. I'm like, make my EP and it's coming out 2 months from now.
Oh, perfect.
And then like 2 months happen. I'm like, it's not finished.
Yeah, Rufus. It was funny. Rufus was talking about that. He's like, yeah, we made the pool party video like a year ago.
Yeah,
and like, there was another song that he wanted to make a video to that he was supposed to get to at the same time he released that video. But he was like, yeah, it was the green screen with MGM. It was that video. Yeah. He was like, yeah, we were supposed to do that, and he was like, we could still do it, but the album was released in 2022. It's 2024. Me and I'm like, fuck it, go for it, dude. You know?
I think I get over ambitious with my dates. I think, okay, I'm not going to condone his anti-Semitism, but Kanye West is very known to not release things on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I don't think you're condoning.
No. I'm a huge fan of Kanye.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not condoning him, but I think I get very his same mindset. It's like I get over ambitious, and I'm like, I've had this awesome idea and I want to present it, and it's like.
He did that with his most recent album. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna release it on December 29th. And he's like, all right, that's not gonna work. So January 6th. All right, that's not gonna work. So
February 9th.
Yeah.
So I often find myself doing that. So in order to promote, I'm not gonna talk any short term. Things here.
Let's go long term.
I think long term, what you can expect and what I want to get out there is I'm an artist. I do not ever want to define myself as one thing. I'm not just a music producer. I'm not just a fashion designer. I'm not just an architect. I am an ideator.
Perfect.
I like to ideate.
That's interesting.
My job right now is to ideate and make solutions to problems I think are present. Maybe they don't need solutions all the time, but I would like to present new ways to look at something.
That's fucking awesome.
Music, expect music. I don't know what I'm doing with music fully, but it's just something that I choose as a way to express myself.
Awesome.
You know, when I sit down, I make music, it's a reflection of how I'm feeling in that moment. I think with music as well, that's going to be very faceless in that degree, voiceless. Not that I won't use my vocals, but expect to like see different voices from me. Whether that be more deeper masculine or more high-pitched feminine, whatever it is, however I can tune my voice, I'm going to do it. Because don't define yourself to one thing. 2, clothes. I want to make as much clothes as possible, sustainably and ethically. No child labor. It's all hand-printed by me.
No 25 cents. No.
I make sure all my blanks are manufactured and distributed ethically. And, my big wholesale company I go through now is in the United States. Los Angeles Apparel. I'm not going to gatekeep that. If you're starting a brand or making a business, Los Angeles Apparel is a really good way to start. Get your social security is all figured out. Make your business, sole proprietorship, whatever it is.
Right.
Get your shit figured out.
Right.
LA Apparel is very good for that.
Right.
So yeah, more clothes, architecture, and architecture in the sense of design, not just buildings. The design. Okay. Like if I say I'm designing a pair of glasses one day, like I said earlier, you could probably expect that from me.
Fuck yeah.
Expect art and design from me.
Art and
design. I want to be a designer, and I'm open to interpretation with anyone.
Right.
And I just want to share anything I can with the world, with other people, and share moments, and create an event. I want to create an event for artists to come together.
Yes.
So we can have a communal space
where
we can reflect off each other.
Absolutely.
And put that megaphone up to Enfield, Connecticut, and really show the talent. I don't care if you're from Windsor Locks, whatever.
100%.
Put that megaphone up.
Absolutely, and I think
there are voices that need to be heard.
This is the platform where it starts. We see a lot of underground talent in the like whether it be in clothing, whether it be in architecture, whether it be in boxing. It doesn't matter. Wherever you start, this is a platform for you. We're gonna put together an event by the summertime. I'm almost sure. Like if I get enough people on board, we're gonna fucking do it. We're gonna have, if we have like 10 to 20 people there, it doesn't matter. We're gonna have people to actually show what they do, and we're gonna have music. It's gonna be a blast, and it's gonna be a great show out for, like you said, Enfield, but for people who don't really feel like they have the confidence to come on and show their art. And also, it'll be a great creative opportunity to start spitballing ideas with other artists, whether it be, film directors or musicians or producers. Doesn't matter. We're going to make it happen. I appreciate you, Chase, for being on. Thank you so much. And go
to www.roomsoriginals.com.
Yes, sir. That'll be linked in the bio.
Go on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. Piepul, Piepul, just my last name. I'm trying to make that more of an ambiguous statement.
Okay.
Just my last name.
Right. Because everyone knows you as Chase.
It's either Chase, but it's like Piepul.
Right.
This is a being.
Piepul.
This is not just one person. This is the idea of something. I want to be as much as for the people as possible.
Yes,
I don't care who you are, what you define as, what everything. You deserve love, and you deserve to have happiness.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem, my
awesome.
man. I appreciate you for being on.
Thank you. Seriously, it's been awesome. No